This was my front lever progress after training the progressions for it for a couple of years. And this is my front lever now, after having not trained the move for about 6 months. In the same fashion, this was my planche progression after training the move for about 3 years, and this is my planche now after not touching the move in 6 months. Now, I obviously haven't progressed in these moves since my previous point where I stopped training them, but I also barely lost any progress at all, and that is key. Hey guys, Captain Calisthenics here with another video. I think most people who train calisthenics, they got into the sport because they saw a video of a static skill. They saw someone doing planche, iron cross, front lever. I think that's a lot more exciting to most people than pull-ups, push-ups, and dips, and that's what causes a lot of people to actually jump into bodyweight training in the first place. So everyone wants to learn skills fast, but if you train them too early on in your journey, you actually slow down your progress, as ironic as it might seem. If you've been stuck on the early progressions for a skill, and I mean the tuck version, advanced tuck version, the full version with a lot of band assistance, or if you're considering starting skills training for a certain skill, then this video is an absolute must-watch for you, so that way you train the efficient way that you should and do not waste time. In this video, we will go over a comprehensive view of when you should begin your skills training and how to structure your training phases in order to set yourself up for success and reach your goals as fast as you can. Also, I'm still giving out my new calisthenics program at a very steep discount until I add the rest of these sections that I want to add for the time being. So if that interests you, go ahead and click the link in the top of the description. What makes skills possible? Fundamental to understanding how to structure your training in the longer and shorter term is knowledge of what even makes calisthenics static holds possible in the first place. Understanding this will open your eyes to how backwards most of the thinking is and how a lot of it puts the cart before the horse. A calisthenics static hold is made possible when the athlete has both sufficient strength and sufficient neural adaptations. In other words, the athlete needs to not only meet a certain minimum strength requirement for the involved muscles, but he also needs to be able to apply that strength in the correct way and activate his muscles maximally in the needed position. When an athlete is very strong but has never trained for skills before, there is a chance he will be able to perform certain calisthenics holds just by virtue of his brute strength. On the other hand, an athlete who is weak and stays weak, but he is trying to do band-assisted front lever or band-assisted planche each workout, he will still never be able to do those skills until he gets to the fundamental strength level he actually needs to have to do them in the first place. Training skills when weak. Thus, the only benefits you can achieve when you are training skills while you are still weak is minor neural adaptations. In other words, if you stay stuck on tuck front lever, for example, for several months, you may be slightly more efficient at that hold, but you're not going to be getting stronger unless you're actually training your strength correspondingly. Without underlying strength gain, you will never be able to actually hold the full position and you are going to stay stuck. The most efficient way to set yourself up for learning calisthenics skills is to acquire more strength as fast as possible and then do some direct training for the skills you want to learn. Overlooking strength work and focusing on statics progression exclusively or mainly means that you are actually trying to use the progressions themselves in order to build the strength to do the next progressions. This is not a very feasible method of calisthenics progression, at least in my view. Here's a good example to help illustrate this. This is akin to if you want to prepare for a standardized test and you lack basic math and grammar skills, but to practice for the test, you decide to take practice tests rather than actually working on the specific skills where you are lacking. In other words, it just doesn't really make sense and you're not going to be getting the highest score possible. Further, when you are weak and continue taking up a portion of your training with static work, you are fatiguing yourself before you get to the part of your training that is actually most important to your progress at that given time. You'll be diminishing the performance in the strength work part of your training, which is what's going to actually drive your progress in these earlier phases. Never use early progressions unless you want to stay stuck. Now, I have kind of elucidated this point in some of my other videos, but I'm going to elaborate on it here. Go ahead and set it in stone for all of you guys. You should never begin training for a skill if the hardest progression you can do is one of the earliest progressions. In other words, if you can only do tuck planche or tuck front lever or something like that, you have no business training those skills specifically until you get your base of strength higher than it already is. And for iron cross, you should be able to do at least a 30-second support hold on rings, and that's just a minimum requirement, bare minimum. The only exception to these general rules is if you are already actually pretty strong, but you just don't have very good mind-muscle connection, very good neural adaptations at all, and that's what's keeping you from doing the medium level progressions. In that case, maybe you can start training from these skills. This is still a pretty set in stone ground rule for most athletes. Now, in my own training, I never wanted to accept this, even though I more or less knew this early on. I mean, even though a lot of the skills tutorials aren't great, they'll have strength requirements. They'll say, okay, front lever, you gotta be able to do some pull-ups, you know, your planche, you gotta be able to do a certain amount of dips, whatever. These requirements may not be perfect, but at least it goes along with the general principle of having some strength. I just never wanted to accept this though. That's why I started training the tuck progressions way too early on in my own calisthenics journey. It may seem cool to go ahead and begin skills training early on, and I completely understand this and sympathize with it, but you are setting yourself up for immense frustration, and you will stay stuck until you accept the realities that I'm putting forth in this video. What is strong enough? What I've already covered is already enough to save a lot of people a lot of wasted effort, a lot of frustration, but I'd like to go a little bit further and cover some specific strength requirements, thresholds you should probably meet before you begin training calisthenics static skills at all. None of these are actual strength requirements as far as the actual terminology goes, because strength means your maximum output, aka your 1 rep max, and these are all based on more than 1 rep sets, so these are more performance benchmarks than anything. The reason I'm doing this is because in calisthenics it's kind of hard to measure a 1 rep output of a certain move. It's just not as hard to, it's not as easy as it is with strength training with weights, and there is a good correlation between being able to do a certain amount of reps at a lower difficulty and then your 1 rep max. These things are correlated. One's higher, the other's gonna be higher, so that's why we're doing this instead of some kind of 1 rep strength test. How do you achieve strength? While calisthenics skills are a product of strength plus neural adaptations, strength is a product of muscle size plus neural adaptation. Training for muscle and for strength are basically the same thing because these are very correlated. You're gonna have more muscle, more strength, more muscle. These things are basically one and the same. In other words, progressive hypertrophy training is how you train for strength. After all, bodybuilders, they're also very strong, and powerlifters, they're also very muscular. You really are not gonna have one without the other in the vast majority of cases. Also, I'm not a big believer in having to do skill-specific exercises for your static holds. For example, some athletes, they'll do tuck planche push-ups as a strength builder for planche. And the thing is, these do not actually meet the requirements for an ideal exercise that I set out in my last video. But just because an exercise is somewhat related to the calisthenics skill, it doesn't mean that it justifies using it in your calisthenics program. In my previous video on calisthenics hypertrophy training, I lay out the requirements we look for in order for an exercise to be included in a strength and hypertrophy program, as well as all the training principles you need to apply for the maximum results possible in the shortest time frame possible. So go ahead and give that video a look if you want to make the most out of your strength training. Make sure you watch this so you're not wasting your time on exercises that are not maximally efficient. So before you begin training calisthenics skills, you want to undergo progressive strength and hypertrophy training in a systematic manner that helps you achieve these goals in the fastest way possible. The fastest you can get strong and muscular enough, the faster you will have a good enough base to begin training calisthenics skills upon. If you are interested in an A to Z program that goes way deeper than my videos and takes all of the guesswork out of this process, then go ahead and click the first link in the description box below. The course is still over half off because I haven't added everything that I want to add to it, so make sure and capitalize on this exclusive price while you still can. All right, now let me go ahead and put the concluding main points summary on the slide here. Also, I want to know that this is the lowest effort, safest, most efficient, most effective way to plan your longer term training cycles. I'm not saying that if you don't follow this by the book, you'll never progress. That's just not what I'm saying. I am saying that this is the best way according to those criteria. All right, guys, I hope you found value in the video. If you did, please leave a thumbs up. That way we can boost my channel and this video in particular in the rankings, and more people will be able to see it and benefit from it. As always, I do respond to my comments, so feel free to leave any thoughts, questions, video recommendations, or whatever else down below in the comments section. If you have any questions on my new training program, then you can go ahead and DM me on Instagram, which is the_captain_calisthenics, or you can just comment them here on YouTube and I will reply to them. Best of luck in your calisthenics journey, and Captain Calisthenics out.